It's 2025 and it's still, in my opinion, the front end of the year. And this is a time when a lot of businesses start to think about their plans for the future. The problem is that the prospects of creating and executing a strategy for growth can be daunting and overwhelming. There's so much to consider, but many startups have very little capacity. So, the aim of this session is that you'll be inspired by some of the key growth strategies that I share, and hopefully take that information on board and expand your business in 2025. So, how to prepare your business for growth? That's what we'll be discussing today. And just a little bit about myself, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, I am a company director and a strategy consultant with well over 10 years experience. I've made a lot of mistakes and had quite a bit of success. So my aim is to share the lessons that I've learned that in some cases have cost me a lot of money, with you, so you don't have to learn by first-hand experience. But as I say, I'm also keen to start a conversation and yeah, hopefully inspire people to make the most out of the year ahead. So the agenda for today is, as we're talking about business growth, what do I mean when I say business growth? So we'll spend a bit of time talking about that. And then we'll talk about the three key pathways to growth, how you can actually realize growth for your business. I'll then talk a little bit about how to build a successful growth strategy. And then I'll provide a real world example with a company that I've consulted with recently and is doing very well. Finally, we'll close out with a few summary points and hopefully invite you to discuss and give some feedback. So, what do I mean by business growth and why is it important? Well, business growth is a stage where an organization achieves consistent increased revenue and or market reach. Growth isn't always about making more money. Sometimes it's about getting more eyes on your business. And either way, the aim really is to achieve a consistent and reliable pathway to growth. More eyes, more revenue, more engagement, better conversion rate. These are all different types of ways that you can measure growth. Why do we need business growth? Well, there are loads of reasons why we need growth, but I want to highlight my top three. First of all, resilience. What growth allows you to do is save for a rainy day. By growing and hopefully securing additional revenue, you're able to put money away and prepare for when times are difficult. Any organization that doesn't operate at a surplus is at risk of folding the first time a difficult time comes around. Trust. Now, for any company that wants to instill trust in their customers, growth is a great way to do that by growing, by increasing your footprint, your number of customers, increasing your revenue. What you're demonstrating to the market is that you are an organization to be trusted because more and more people are relying on you for your products and services. Now, that's not always going to be true. Unfortunately, we do have some charlatans who take advantage of effective ways to grow, and people's willingness to jump on a bandwagon in order to defraud people. But that's not what we're talking about today. The reason why it's such an effective way to defraud people is because growth is a reliable way to demonstrate competence in your industry. And finally, innovation. By operating at a surplus, by growing, by increasing your revenue, by increasing your trust or your customer reach, you're able to experiment more. You're able to take more risks. And what that often leads to is an increase in revenue, but also new products and new services. So talking about growth strategies, from my perspective, there are three main ways to grow your business. The first is to increase your customer base. What that means is increase the number of people who know about you, your products and services. The second is to increase your product range, effectively diversifying what you sell to your target customers. So if typically a customer will come for you for one product, if you now have 3 or 4 relevant products, what you're doing is you're increasing the average order value potentially of each individual customer. And finally, you can adjust your prices. And notice I don't say increase your prices, because a good pricing strategy isn't always about making things more expensive. It's about making sure that your prices are suitable enough for your audience that you can have the widest reach. Sometimes that means lowering your prices, and inviting or engaging more people to make a purchase. Sometimes it does mean increasing your prices because you're undervaluing what you're offering to the ecosystem. So a strong brand strategy takes both into consideration. So we're going to dive into those three in a bit more detail. So first of all, increase your customer base. As I mentioned, increasing your customer base is about actively growing the number of people who regularly engage with your brand, who purchase from you your products and services. And there are a number of ways that you can do that. So organically, customer referrals. If you have some loyal customers who love your products and services, encouraging them to recommend a friend or recommend people who they think would also benefit from your products and services is a great way of increasing the number of people who know about your products and services and know about your company. In-person outreach. There's a reason why people will still stand on street corners or knock on people's doors to make them aware of their brands. It's because it works. And sometimes at its most fundamental level, uh, direct in-person outreach is one of the most effective ways to transform uh, people who don't know about your business into people who do. This is going back to about 2012 now, but I remember walking through central London and somebody stopped me and asked me if I like watching movies. And there was this new online service available called Netflix that I could sign up to. I said no, I wasn't interested. But that always stuck with me, that even companies like Netflix in their early days did in-person outreach. Other growth strategies include things like new market penetration. And the idea here is that you can look at adjacent markets in order to raise awareness. Maybe you are a UK business, and looking at a different geographic market would mean expanding into Europe or even America. Maybe you sell products and services to a primarily young female audience, and looking at new markets would involve you looking at maybe a middle-aged or a slightly older female audience, as an example. So finding a new market to expand into is also a really good way of increasing your customer base. Now, this isn't without its issues. There are pros and cons for all growth strategies, and I just wanted to highlight a few of each. So one of the key pros for growing your customer base is it can be relatively cheap. As I say, direct in-person outreach or encouraging people to take part in customer referrals can be quite low cost, but really effective. The good thing is that these types of campaigns also, if done right, have a really positive impact on brand loyalty, because you're focusing on developing strong relationships with your customers. One of the downsides, however, is these strategies by nature have to be very visible. And therefore, you may see some ghosting strategies by competitors who want to mitigate the impact that you're having in the ecosystem. So if you try to reach out with a new offer or a new um, campaign, then some of your competitors might try to trump that campaign with one of their own. Another con is that you can sometimes risk alienating existing customers by chasing after new customers. You might often see this with the mobile phone market, where the best deals in recent years would be for new customers, and existing customers, in order to get a similar deal, would have to go somewhere else, go to a new mobile phone network. I think those types of deals are slowly disappearing, but yeah, there's a reason why there are so many effective services such as like switching services, switch. It's because if people feel like they're being alienated by the company that they work with, then they'll look elsewhere. So that's increase your customer base. The next strategy that we highlighted was increasing or expanding your product range. Expanding your product range is about adding new products or services to a selection that your business already sells. And the key thing when it comes to expanding your product range is making sure that your products are complementary. There's a reason why Apple doesn't sell soap or deodorant. It's because that's not what customers who buy Apple products expect from them. So making sure that your products are relevant and complementary is a great way of making sure that somebody who would come to you for one product or service will come to you for other things that they're likely to purchase as well. So some good growth strategies are around productization or servitization. And servitization or productization is about turning a product into a service or turning a service into a product. So if you like to think about a mobile phone, which is a product that many people will buy, but many people engage with it as a service. They pay a monthly fee. When that phone reaches a certain age, they just get a new phone. So that's the idea of turning a product, a mobile phone, into a service. You can also, in some cases, turn a service into a product. And some examples of turning a service into a product might be training. So if, for example, you are a training provider and you typically go to events and deliver training, a product that you might be able to sell would be a DVD of your training course, which will give people insight and support about some of the things that you might care about. So that's just an example. And we've touched on it slightly, but I'll also highlight new commercial models. So the idea of looking at expanding your product range when we think about new commercial models is how can you sell the same thing differently? So one of the more popular, newer commercial models that we see, especially in maybe the supplement industry now, is subscription models. So, if you would like some sort of product, rather than just buying it once and then buying it again when you've run out, setting up a subscription model would be that every month you get a certain amount of that specific product, and you pay a monthly fee for the privilege. But yeah, the main focus that you want to think about when expanding your product range is this complementary to the brand that I already have and the products and services that I already deliver? Some pros to this is that it may increase your average order value. If people are now coming to you for 3 or 4 products as opposed to 1 or 2, then your average order value may increase. It also provides more protection during fluctuating markets. So if, for example, one of your product ranges slowly starts to wane or decrease in influence, if you have multiple, then maybe you can protect yourself against a complete downturn. And again, if you've got services and products, you're providing yourself with even more protection. Some of the cons is that in order to expand your product range, it may require some significant investment. It's not cheap to develop a new product range or a service offering, so you might need to have some savings to enable that. Resources may become stretched. So if you're a startup or a small business, offering more products and services also means that you have to support those products and services. And sometimes it's not always easy to do that if there aren't that many people in your business available. So that's a little bit about expanding your product range. Now we'll talk a little bit about adjusting your pricing strategy. So this is about a plan to increase revenue and or market share by strategically adjusting your price of your products or services. So the idea here is that if you're not offering your customers the products and services they like at exactly the right price, you might be leaving some money on the table. Maybe increasing your prices doesn't alienate any customers and you can take that additional revenue home. Or maybe decreasing your prices opens the door for a bunch more customers who never even considered you. And that increase actually takes your revenue and profitability up in the long run. So there are loads of different types of pricing strategy. And I won't go into all of them. I definitely recommend having a look, but I'll talk about a couple very quickly. So competitor-based pricing, that's the one that I would always recommend you considering if you're a new business. What is the product or service I'm offering? And what are my competitors or companies that are similar to me selling their products for? And based on what they're doing and based on how you compare in the market, you can adjust your prices accordingly. If your offering is a slightly more luxurious, lavish version of what your competitors are doing, maybe you increase your price. If it's a more basic, straightforward, easily accessible version, maybe you decrease your price. Obviously, on the back end, you need to be aware of the cost of the products that or services that you're delivering and make sure that you're not operating at a loss. But in some cases, businesses do operate at a loss, at least initially, to gather that market share. They want people to know about the brand. And then in the future, they increase their prices once they have developed a little bit of brand loyalty, which can backfire. So I'd always encourage people to think carefully before they adjust their prices. Cost plus pricing is probably the most basic way of thinking about how you price your products. What you're doing there is you're saying, how much does it cost me to create this product or service? And how much money do I want to make on top? So if it cost me 60 pence to create a bottle of water, for example, which isn't the case, bottles of water are incredibly cheap to manufacture and deliver. But let's say, for instance, it did cost me 60 pence for me to make a bottle of water, and I say I want to make 20 pence on top of each bottle, then that means I'm going to sell it for 80p. Now, this is a very fundamental, basic way of pricing, but again, when you are very new in the space, it may be an easy way to at least start to understand where you might fit in the market and how people might engage with your products and services. The key thing to consider whenever you are looking at adjusting your pricing is engage the market. Test people's opinions, test people's considerations, and get their feedback. Is it a good idea? Do I want to buy a product that's a little bit more expensive, or do I like the price as it is? Get that feedback and then use that to make your decision. Some pros to adjusting your pricing strategy. It's fairly straightforward to implement. You just update your pricing. It's about understanding your costs and making sure that you're not operating at a loss. It also helps your business set clear profitability targets. In order for you to have a good pricing strategy, you obviously need to understand your costs. So what that allows you to do is have a better idea of your profitability and allows you to plan for the future and set realistic targets for your business. Some of the cons: you may not attract enough customers, especially if you decrease your prices with the aim of increasing volume of sales. That may not work. You may not get enough customers to cover the losses that you made in the cost reduction. So take that into consideration. It's also difficult to walk back pricing changes, especially if you are thinking about increasing your prices. If you start at a low price and you want to increase your price, it can be very, very jarring for customers. So keep that in mind and make sure that any decisions that you make about pricing are right for you and your business. So those are some of the ways that you can grow your business. The key question now is, how can you build a successful growth strategy? So first of all, we'll talk about a successful growth strategy and what it is. And this statement hopefully will resonate. A successful business growth strategy identifies achievable actions to take a business from a known current position, which we refer to as an as-is position, to a well-defined future state, which we refer to as a to-be position. And the first thing you need to think about is, what is your targeted area of growth? Where do you want your business to grow? You may have multiple, but I'd say, especially if you're limited on capacity, focus on just one. What area of your business is most important for you to see growth in the next 6 months, for instance? Is it the number of eyes on your business, your number of followers? Is it the amount of revenue that you want people so the amount of revenue you want your business to make? Is it the amount of products that you shift? Maybe you don't really care about increasing the amount of eyes on your business. Maybe you just want to move more product, move more items and get it into the ecosystem, or whatever the decision is, make sure it's very clear. The next one, I can't stress this enough, use as a template. Use a growth strategy template. There are so many templates available. I'll share the one that I personally prefer, but find one that suits you and allows you to document your ideas on paper or digitally. Next is conduct market and industry research. The reason why this is so important is because you're not the only person trying to grow. And rather than falling into the same pitfalls as other companies in your ecosystem, you should be able to learn from their successes and even their mistakes. What this will also allow you to do is understand with evidence how the market might respond to some of your changes. We don't do gut feel. We don't put our wet finger in the air and see which way the wind blows. In order for us to know, or at least have a good prediction as to how the future might be for our business, we look at key examples of how it's been done elsewhere. So a strong amount of market and industry research will give you the confidence that the change that you're about to implement or the actions you're about to take will have a hopefully positive impact. Next, we're going to set growth goals. You want to be as precise as possible about the goals that you want to achieve. And again, my encouragement to you is keep them quite short. Don't have too many growth goals because you might be biting off more than you can chew. This is one that a lot of people, unfortunately, don't feel very comfortable doing, but I couldn't stress it's important. Share your vision and share it with as many people as you think can benefit you and your business. Ultimately, you're going to be the person executing this. And just because you share your vision doesn't mean that you're operating at a disadvantage. What it does do, however, is allow other people in your ecosystem to provide insight and maybe even share information that might help you. But sharing your vision also forces you to be accountable. You know, you've said it out loud. You said you're going to do X, Y, and Z. And now you have to stand by it. So I really do stress the importance of sharing your vision. Any founder who shares their vision with me already has somebody on hand to provide them with support where applicable. And I'm not the only person. Many people are very keen to help a founder who has a vision for the future. Next, create an achievable action plan. You've got your goals, you've got your vision. Now, what is the real world pathway from as is to be? What actions, what steps can you take which will allow you to get from A to B? And again, by sharing your vision, you're able to test that your action plan will actually help you realize your goals. And then you want to identify the resources you need. Resources may be talent, it may be skills, it may be people, it may be money. In order for you to realize that action plan, you will need resources, and being very clear on the resources you need will again help you to demystify these goals and make them a lot more pragmatic. And finally, execute your plan. My recommendation is that you don't get yourself bogged down too much in the planning stage. There's no such thing as a perfect plan. Spend time designing it, sharing it with key stakeholders, adjusting it, and then do it. And each time you deliver an action or you attempt something, review your plan and make sure that it's still along the right track. So plan it, do it, and then check it, as in make sure that your actions are having the outcome that you want to see, and then act. Do I need to adjust anything based on what I've seen so far? Do I need to make any changes to my strategy? So, a very quick real world example that I'd like to share with you, which is a company called Flake Bake. We have here the Flake Bake team and the founder, Mike. And Mike came to me a few years ago now saying that he wanted to grow his business. And in particular, he wanted to increase the number of Jamaican patties that he sold. Now, Flake Bake, which is a successful Caribbean catering company that is famous for its Jamaican patties, was doing well, but um, Mike had the vision of professionalizing the company, but also increasing the number of sales. And I'll give you a little bit of a behind the scenes look of some of the things that we did to help achieve that goal. So, as I said, when you're preparing a growth strategy, you need a template. And this is the template that we use. It's called a business model canvas. And it's broken down into 9 segments, which I'll talk about very quickly. We've got customer segments on the right. And this is where I outline and identify all of the different customer groups that your business serves. So this can be a range of different demographics. It could be a range of different markets, different locations. But which groups of customers do you serve? And you want to group them by their individual needs, interaction styles, demographics, as I say, or other key factors that you think make them different. Next, we'll talk about customer relationships. How do you engage with your customers? What relationship channels do you have with your customers? And it could be your website, it could be in-person engagement, it could be on social media, it could be through email or letters. What are all of the different ways that you develop intimacy with your customers? And there's a lot of overlap these days with customer channels. What I'll ask you here is, how do your customers pay for their products? What are all of the different ways that that customer can get the product in their hands? Sometimes you might have a pay portal on your website. Sometimes you might have pop-up shops. You might have a physical store, a physical location. You might have a third-party distributor who sells the products on your behalf. What are all of the different ways that a transaction between the customer and your business can occur? Then we move on to value proposition. And put briefly, this is explaining how your business uniquely serves your customer. So, why does the customer go to your business? Explain that in writing. What is it about you and your business and your skills and your resources that serves your customer uniquely? Then we've got key activities, and this is an opportunity for you to write a very, very detailed long list of all of the activities required for your business to function effectively. So give it some time and give it some thought, and don't leave any stone unturned. This should be an exhaustive exercise where you highlight all of the things required for your business to run properly. Then we've got key resources, and key resources is a breakdown of all of the assets that your business owns. And these are the things that are absolutely critical for your business's success. These can be physical resources, these can be people, key people, and this can also be investment. So think about all of the resources required, all of the assets needed to make your business run effectively. And then on the left-hand side, we have key partners. And the idea here is, who are the people, what are the relationships in your business that allow it to run? So whether it's suppliers, whether it's influencers or ambassadors that you work with, whether it's partner organizations that you've got strong relationships with, who are all of the people that help the business run effectively? It could be consultants, it could be accountants. Write a long list of all of those people. We'll move and talk a little bit about revenue streams. And this effectively talks about all of the different ways that your company makes money. And it could be straight down to the transactions between you and the customers, but there might be some other ways that your company generates revenue as well. Maybe you have a physical location which you rent out from time to time. Maybe you've made some investments with your company, and some of them are paying interest? What are all of the different ways that your business makes money? And then we've got cost structure. And simply put, this is all of the expenses that are required for your business to run. And this can be a long list. So again, I would encourage you to be exhaustive, but give a thought to the key costs of goods sold and the key expenses that are required to ensure that your business can deliver its value to customers. So that's the business model canvas. And when I've done the exercise of populating this document with some of my clients in the past, many of them have said the same thing. It's exhausting because if you haven't done it before, you are now forced to effectively put all of the information that's been lingering in your head for months or years onto a single piece of paper. But it is useful because what it also allows you to do is identify gaps. Where am I now? And where do I want to be? What customer segments would I like to have in future that I don't already have? What customer channels do I not currently have that I want to have? Maybe you want to open a physical location, for example. What partners am I missing to help me go to the next stage? Maybe I want to develop a relationship with a key ambassador or a key influencer who's going to help promote the business. Capture all of that information on this page too, because now effectively you've got something to aspire to. It's a more, in my view, effective way of putting together a vision board. So very briefly, here what we have is a very high level view of some of the things that were captured when I did this exercise with Mike. And it is by no means exhaustive. I'm not going to reveal the secret sauce that Mike has behind the scenes to make his business so successful, but you won't be surprised to see some of the things that I hear. But this is an illustration of the types of things that you might want to capture on your business model canvas. The next thing we did was our 2B model. So what do we aspire to in the future? Where are we now? And the image captures some of the content in red that represents the things that we want to achieve in the future. And what this does now is give us a clear set of goals that we can start creating actions around, whether it's find key people that are going to help us, or whether it's reach out to relevant customers in order for us to expand our offering or expand our customer base. And together with Mike and I, what we did for each of those different actions was create a set of objectives. And based on those actions, we identified 4 SMART objectives. And maybe I'll spend more time in another video talking about what we mean when we say SMART, but it needs to be clearly specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. And there's a lot of content online about what SMART goals are, but these were the SMART goals that we identified. And once you've got those clear SMART goals and you know what you're working towards, you can then create achievable actions that you can track and test to see if you're on the right track or not. And this also will keep you honest and keep you accountable. So as you can see, here's a very high level mock-up version of an action plan, which you can use to make sure that you're on track with some of the goals that you've set yourself. So as I said, that's a very high level version. I'm not going to reveal all of the detail behind the work that myself and Mike did, but he was very happy for me to share some of the examples that I have with you today. So there you have it. That's a summary of how you can prepare your business for growth in 2025. Just a couple of things for you to think about as some parting takeaways. First of all, be crystal clear on the growth or the goal you are trying to achieve. Sometimes we think very vaguely of the type of growth that we want to achieve. But my encouragement to you is be very, very specific on what it is you want to achieve so that you can target it, but also measure it. Next, find a growth strategy template that works for you. I've shared with you the business model canvas, which I think is the best template for these types of discussions. But if there's one that suits you better, just type in growth strategy template on Google, and there are a number of different templates that you might want to use. This is the key bit. Provide as much detail as you can think of. Put anything that's in your head onto a piece of paper, because ultimately, yeah, as life gets busy and as things get more and more complicated, there is a really good chance of you forgetting things, but also not communicating those things effectively to other stakeholders. The more information you get down on paper, the easier it is for you to communicate your vision to other people. And that's the next one: share your growth strategy vision. So be open and willing to discuss your plans for growth with your ecosystem, people who you think are on a similar wavelength to you and would be willing to provide support, insight, resource to help you achieve it, or at the very least, encouragement and accountability. And then we've got number 5: execute. Get some skin in the game. I can't stress how important it is that we move away from the theoretical into the practical. Once you've built a plan, actually do, because you will then realize that there are some holes in your plan. There is no such thing as a perfect plan. So the sooner you can get on to executing, the sooner you'll realize what those holes are, and then you can revise your plan. And that gives you the opportunity to test and adjust. Okay, so that is my advice when it comes to building and developing a growth strategy. I really hope it was useful. But again, if you think there's something that I missed, if you think that there's some insight that would be really good for other people to consider, feel free to comment and let other people know about it. Now, as always, what you're currently watching is a discussion or the outcome of a discussion that was had months ago. And if you were interested in joining those live webinar sessions where this content is released for the first time, follow the link in the description, get in touch, and we can have a discussion and see if it's right for you. But that's it from me. I hope you have a fantastic week, and yeah, hope you can use this to grow your business. Take care.